So there's just always been something off about Ron DeSantis. From the very moment that he put his infant son in a MAGA onesie so he could properly kiss the ring of King Donald while running for governor of Florida. And it got even weirder and more problematic after he took office. Like when he signed a bill making it harder for felons to regain their voting rights after the people of Florida had overwhelmingly passed an amendment restoring those rights, basically throwing in a poll tax. Or when he signed an anti-riot bill that granted immunity to people who, get this, decide to drive their cars into protesters who are blocking a road. A judge wound up blocking that law, but DeSantis filed an appeal in federal court. Also, because blocking the non-existent critical race theory in public schools wasn't enough, DeSantis turned his focus to higher education, mandating that public universities survey so-called viewpoint diversity on campus, a.k.a. inquire into how liberal their views are. And he's still extremely devoted to his dear leader, or at least to pandering to his dear leader's base, announcing plans last month to create a state office to investigate so-called election fraud, despite the fact that Trump won Florida. So all that is why his latest action, creating a civilian military force under his control, is alarming. 22 other states and Puerto Rico have state National Guards as well, so it's not unprecedented. But there's just something about the way that DeSantis talks about bypassing the federal government that is worth paying attention to. Here he is yesterday with that same child who wore the MAGA onesie along for the ride.
We also want to make sure that we have the flexibility and the ability needed to respond to events in our state in the most effective way possible. And some of that will require us to be able to have access and be able to use support in ways that are not encumbered by the federal government or don't require federal government.
Joining me now is Florida Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services, Nikki Fried, who is also running for governor of Florida, and Fernand Armand, Democratic pollster and strategist. And my pal, I'm going to start with you, Fernand, on this, because you and I reacted to this, the image, first of all, with the child standing there, which definitely had some Fidel kind of weirdness to it, was weird. But also just the fact that we had exactly the same reaction this morning. So I just want to let you react for the rest of us. When you saw this announcement, your thoughts were what?
Well, my thoughts were this was what my parents and grandparents and great-grandparents were warning me about, that if we ever saw these types of moves happen in the United States, we need to be on high alert. Because what you now have is this governor openly defying the federal government and saying, I want to have a private militia force that I assemble that is accountable only to me, not to the Pentagon, outside of the chain of command that has a paramilitary capacity. And let's be clear here, Joy. You know, I'm really upset with folks in the media that are saying, oh, well, you know, there's precedent for this in 23 other states. Florida hasn't had to mobilize this function since the World War II period. And it was disbanded precisely because it was only needed because there was a deficit of potential troops that could assist in the duties of the state. What is happening is that this is now a series of actions by a wannabe authoritarian in Ron DeSantis, someone who, as you outlined earlier, has made it very clear he has a callous attitude towards life, as you saw in his administration of the pandemic, where we've now seen nearly 60,000 Floridians pay with their lives because of his policies. You've seen here in the Sunshine State, where law demands every public document be made public. He has had to be sued because he doesn't want to give public information. You'll hear the cabinet official, Nikki Fried, say in just a second, he's canceled cabinet meetings. This is a man who is acting and telling us in clear language, give him control and give him power, and he will do everything in his power to keep it at all costs. And I think it's a chilling moment for America, for the Republican Party, and for those of us in Florida, I think reason for genuine concern.
Well, and the thing is, because, right, it's the accumulation of everything together. This is a guy who's saying you can run over protesters with your car. You can be in the streets and protest, but it's illegal to protest if I don't like what you're protesting about. But if you're on my side, you're fine. He is an extreme authoritarian, Nikki Fried, and he's somebody, this guy has secret executive orders. That isn't normal. Florida law has this sort of weird thing where they can have, Florida law has this sunshine laws where you're supposed to be able to get information from your government. This guy has passed, first of all, more executive orders than any other governor. Georgia, they've had 505 with the most executive orders. It's Georgia, Florida, Colorado, Rhode Island, and New Mexico. So he's number 2 in 5. But he is passing executive orders that you can't get, that people have to sue him for. And then there's this other thing that I wonder if this might be part of why he's making this secret military of his own. The Defense Secretary of the United States, Lloyd Austin, has ordered the National Guard that they have to get vaccinated or they'll lose pay. The governor of Florida has made noises about unvaccinated police feeling they should feel free to move to Florida. Do you think that what he's doing has something to do with trying to create sort of, I don't know, a vaccine-free force? I can't get to the bottom of it, but what do you think?
This is horrifying. You know, that was my first reaction. You know, Joy, when you were going through all of those headlines, each one individually is scary enough. When you put them all together and then you see this last action, where he's not only forming his own army, but it's that an army that is not accountable to anybody, not to the people of our state, not to the Constitution. And he's asked our legislature for $100 million to fund this. This is a time when families are struggling. Parents are trying to make the hard decisions of whether to put gas in their tank or buy another loaf of bread. And so, yeah, I do think that one of these issues is he's asking for these individuals to come down from New York unvaccinated, and now he's going to employ them here in the state of Florida. So this should be an alarming, not just people of our state, but the entire country, that the governor who is unhinged, who is going out of his way to show that he is an authoritarian dictator here in our state, believes that he is above the law, doesn't listen to the legislature, doesn't communicate with the legislature, as Armand just said, has canceled almost all of our cabinet meetings, doesn't believe that he's accountable to the cabinet, the people. This is an individual who believes that he is running for president in 2024. And so he is taking his eye off the ball on what is happening in the state, the issues that are impacting our state. And now this last move, if we didn't say it before, and if the people of our state haven't been listening already, this should be the most alarming action and scary action that he has taken thus far in his administration.
And Fernand, you know, this is a guy who labeled a Democratic National Committee member who's named Thomas Kennedy, labeled him a known agitator, or had the FDLE do it. So is he sort of investigating his political enemies? If he would do that, and then he gets his own little police force or military force, like there's almost nothing he can't do. He is running for re-election. Nikki Fried is running against him. Should we expect that the reaction, if he doesn't win, to be similar to the reaction that Trump had when he didn't win?
Well, not only should we expect it, he may very well have his own private militia, ready to enforce whatever he interprets as the law. He just convened a special session now, Joy, in this past month of November to basically reinterpret and relitigate what federal law on vaccine mandates were. And you talk about what he did there with Thomas Kennedy. He's also declared that war, and his office has, on the free media and on the press. You have reporters like Grant Stern being physically removed and accosted attending his press conferences. You've seen him in his office and his pit bull trolls go after the Associated Press and basically allow folks in his office that are being paid with taxpayer funds to spend their day demonizing members of the press and sending digital mobs after them. Again, these are not the actions of an innocent, good faith actor making a rational decision to help fortify the state in a time of need. This is a wannabe dictator literally taking a page out of the dictator's playbook, which is putting together a paramilitary militia accountable only to him.
I think, and this is a time when the media needs to see what we see, take history into account. What he's doing there is not normal. It is not what 20 other some odd states are doing. It is different. And people are starting to call it DeSantistan. He is setting up something down there that ain't right. And people need to pay attention to it. I appreciate both of you being here. Nikki Fried, Fernand Armand, thank you both very much. We'll stay on this story as well.